Welcome all. In today's session, we will discuss about for loop in Python. So the concept of looping comes into picture when we want any statement to execute n number, multiple number of times. That is, for example, I have a statement saying hello world. I want to print the same hello world 10 to 15 times. Or 10 times or 15 times. That time, it's very tedious for me to continuously write 10 times printing statements. It becomes quite tedious and the code becomes very lengthy. To avoid this, okay, to avoid to print hello world 10 to or 15 times, the same action has to be repeated a number of times. To avoid this particular task of elaborating the code n number of times, we come with the concept of Python loops. Okay, so in Python, we have two types of loop, that is counting loop and event control loop. So the two different loops here are counting loop and event control loop. So now let's discuss about our event control loop, that is the for loop. So when do we use the concept of for loop? Whenever we want to repeat any action n number of times, the concept of loops comes into picture. So here, for loop is used to execute a block of code specified number of times. That is, the condition will be specified prior how many times you have to repeat the loop. Whether you have to repeat the loop 10 times, 5 times, or 6 times, or n number of times, and based on the elements in range or in the sequence, what range the elements are being given in that range, and according to that the sequence. So the syntax for loop is here: for variable in iterable. Okay, so for, we are going to use var indicates it take items from the iterable one by one. So var acts as a variable. As we have already discussed, variable is a container to store the data. Iterable also acts as a variable. So what all content is there in this iterable will be passed one by one. For var in indicates from here iterable to var. Okay, so here it says for is our keyword, var is nothing but a container which holds the data which comes from the iterable. Iterable could be anything. So here it consists of a list. List could be anything encoded in the square brackets, as we have already discussed about the list clearly in the data types. Tuple could be anything which is enclosed in the curly flower brackets, right? The items could be anything. The item could be in the form of a string, the item could be in the form of a number, etc. Okay, so whatever content is there in this iterable, whether it could be list, tuple, then okay, from here putting into or dropping them into a variable using for loop and printing that particular variable. So this process of okay printing the elements from the given list using for loop. And here is the flow chart. So here in the flow chart, last item when we reach the whenever the condition is satisfied in the for loop, once it reaches the last item, it will print. That is true and it shows exist. If else, the body, it will enter into the body of the loop. So this is how diagrammatically a for loop will be running, will explained in the flow chart. So whenever we have to run any condition, any list, elements in the list, we want to print the elements in the list, we want to print elements in the set or any collection of elements can be printed using the for loop. Then in the for loop, let's understand a basic example. So here we have given a variable string equal to, it is assigned with the string as loops here. So here, if you could see, it is being assigned, the variable string is being assigned with the loops. So whatever content loop is there in the single encoded, I mean in the commas, single encoded commas, we will see how it prints. So when I say for char is a variable in string. So by using my for variable, sorry, for loop, For char is a variable in string. So whatever characters are there in this string, I want to print them one by one using a for loop. So here, if I just print char, I will get all the, you can see the output LOOPS. So every character which is placed in my string variable is being printed using a for loop. So for loop is already known as, okay, so here it is used when we already know the number of times the loop will iterate. So that's what it is called as event controlled. Why? Because the condition or how many number of times the loop has to be iterated will be known well in advance. Then let's give, here are certain examples of for loop using, okay. So I have taken a variable fruits. In this, I'm passing the elements into it. So this is in the form of a list. So I'm passing apple, banana, and cherry. And I want to print all these elements which are there in fruits variable. So here when I say for x in fruits indicates what all elements are there in fruits to be dropped in x, and I'm going to print the x, you will get these elements. So let's demonstrate here in our IDE platform. So let's go to our Thorny screen. So let's take a variable fruit is equal to banana, comma, apple, comma, cherry, comma, guava. These are my elements in my list of fruits. So I want to print these elements, so I will use for in fruits, and I will print my x variable. So when I run this particular code, you could see it's printing all the elements which are being placed in my list here. So using for loop, I can print all the elements of my list. So let's proceed further. Now we will see how we can use our for loop using our break and continue statements. So here, break statement indicates that it will break unless and until the condition satisfied. So let's explain this. Let us explain this particular code example. So I have taken for I in range 10 to 50 indicates that it's going to start printing me the numbers from 10 up to 49. It will exclude 50 as it's given the range here. And I will say print I. But I want to print the numbers from 10 to 30. So I want to break the loop. The loop is continuously running from 10 unless and until the condition satisfied is 10 to 50. That is 10 to 49 numbers it has to print. That is from 10 to 49. The loop is continuously running, but I want to only print the numbers from 10 to 30. So I will use a condition, that conditional statement if I, the variable I, which has all the elements I equal to 30. So whenever the value of I becomes 30, the loop is going to end and it is only going to print me the numbers 10 to 30. So using this break statement, I can break my loop and stop the execution of the program. So let's see this code example demonstration. So here we will take for I in range, that it's the loop starts from 10 comma 50 indicates it will stop at 49. Print I. So here if we could see, in order to do this, let's say print I, and then we will put a condition here. If I is equal to 30, break. Okay, we will use our break statement in order to break our condition here. So, using this particular condition, we shall break the loop here whenever it reaches this condition. So, first let us see whether we are able to print the numbers first. Yes, you could see we are able to print the numbers from 10 to 49. Okay, as the range itself says, so it will exclude the last number. It will just print the last second number till 49. So it started from 10 up to 49. It has printed. So now let's break the statement so that it will only print me the numbers up to 30. So I want only till 30 my numbers to be printed. So I will use my break statement. So you could see my loop will stop at 30. So it starts from 10 and it will print up to 30. So by the usage of break statement, I can break my loop. I can stop the execution of the code unless and until the condition satisfied. So the break statement is used to break the execution of the code. So let's see, there is another statement which is called as the continue statement. So in the continue statement, we have the for numbers given in the form of a list, that is 20, 11, 9, 66, 44. So I only want to print. Okay, so now the condition is here if num mod 2. So here it indicates that num is a variable. Mod indicates it's an operator which will return us the remainder. So when num mod 2 is equal to 0, it has to continue. So now in the first number it is checking. So 20 mod 2 will always give me the remainder 0. So when the numbers condition is checked, which is giving us the remainder 0, it will, after this, all the elements will be printed. So the continue statement is used to continue the flow of program or continue the execution of the program. So let's see how it will take place. So let's go to our IDE and we will use this. So here the code way runs in this way. So let's take for I num in. We will put a condition there. If num mod 2 is equal to 0, then you have to continue the loop. Continue and print the number. You could see it is printing all the numbers. So here when it says num mod 2, the 20 will be checked. The 20 will give us the remainder 0. So it will continue the execution of the code by printing 7, 5 and 11. Now again, if I just check for 66, okay, so 66 again num mod 2 equal to 0. Again it will remain, give me the remainder 0 and it will stop because 66 will satisfy this condition and as a result it will stop the execution of the code. So here it will 7, 5 and 11 because after 66 we don't have any number into it. So this is how our for loop continuous statement works. Thank you all. Meet you up in the next session.